It's funny you mention that, because it could be a good idea just depending on how you execute it, right? I mean, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there. This is Moto Taco. So this is what $1,000 gets you on Facebook Marketplace, huh? So it's really not in terrible condition. It just needs a little bit of love. I'm sure it can be fixed. There's evidence of overspraying on the tank right here. It got spray painted twice, I believe. The exhaust is really needs some corrosion treatment. It looks like it's been laid down a couple of times, but the previous owner won't admit to it. I mean, I'm certain it has. Most of the time they say it's not, but there's also problems with the paint, I can see. Like, I can even see that there's a fingerprint in there somewhere where they tried to correct it or something. It will be a great bike, it just needs to be brought back to its previous condition. There's a lot of minor defects, etc. Like, this thing is almost coming out. I don't know why the gauge cluster is almost coming out. I think there's some kind of... I haven't owned this series of Ninja before. It appears that there's some screws behind it that might work for mounting. Yeah, the bike didn't even start, and I don't really think that that's a problem. I've already cleaned out the injectors and charged the battery. So there must be something going on with the gas tank. That right there is paint thinner sitting on top of the gas tank right now. I'm trying to see if I can scrub the original paint job off and see if I can get the original Ninja logo back, because the Ninja logo sits right there. He painted over it. I think the gas tank would have looked better in its original condition. I think that the title says that the bike was pearl white, so I definitely want to see if I can try to get that look back and definitely address this exhaust and at least get the bike running. The bike didn't even come with an air filter. So the first step to our restoration is I wanted to try to see if I can get it to factory condition. I know that the bike can start, but when I drained all of the gas out of the gas tank, by the smell of it, almost all of it had turned into turpentine, which kind of worries me, and I really hope that I don't have to clean out the fuel pump, because it could easily clog that. So I managed to get some of this very heavy spray paint to start bubbling off, only to reveal yet another layer of spray paint. My goal is to restore that factory Ninja logo. I really want that back. And in the midst of doing this, I found yet another problem. So I thought that I could get all of the factory paint back, but it appears as though the previous owner had tried to sand the tank and just gave up at some point. That big metal blotch right there isn't from my paint remover. That's from some type of circular sander. So this is after a ton of scrubbing, but I was able to get most of the factory paint job back. But that just presented me with the issue of covering up these bare metal spots. I believe an attempt from the previous owner to try to sand down the entire tank. So that poses a little bit of an issue for me, because now I have to get some factory OEM paint from Kawasaki. What is very good though, one very good thing, is we were able to bring out the factory Ninja logo again. That's really what I wanted here. I didn't want to put a new sticker on there and clear coat over there. I wanted the original factory OEM logo, which I'm really happy about. Still got a little bit of evidence of the old paint there. Still got a little bit of it. The orange is really hard to get off. Not only that though, we have this factory OEM Kawasaki gas cap, because this is some kind of aftermarket thing and it won't close or seal properly. So the materials we use to get the spray paint off of this tank and try to get this factory coat back, one of them is premium paint and epoxy remover. This is just about the nastiest stuff in the world, but I highly recommend it because it worked the best. For the smaller spots, I used Rustoleum brand acetone. And then this Goo Gone graffiti remover. It's basically worthless. So the tank obviously being one of the biggest parts of the restoration, I don't think I need a whole lot of paint. I'm just getting some factory Kawasaki OEM touch-up paint from Touch-Up Direct. The paint's not here yet. So until then, the bike needs a new front tire. So the front tire obviously being the biggest safety hazard on this motorcycle, I didn't find it necessary to change the back tire just quite yet because it still has a little bit of meat on it. I think it should be good for another 5,000 to 8,000 miles. The front tire really is the one that needs addressing. There's basically no tread. And just like I thought, the gauge cluster was only shaky because it doesn't have some of the mounting screws, and they're also mounted incorrectly. So not only are they the incorrect bolts, but not all of them are there. So that's a pretty easy fix. So after addressing the front tire issue and changing it as quickly as I could, because I genuinely hate changing tires, it was time to move on to the issue of the plastics. They really look terrible. I mean, there's all kinds of fingerprints and smudging,
and you can tell the job was just really, really hastily done and oversprayed many, many times. So it looks like the correct route to go would be to sand down all of the small imperfections with a very fine grit sandpaper by hand, and then treat the fairings with the same paint that I'm getting from TouchUp Direct that I'm using on the tank. I now have to use that on the fenders too, because I need it to match. So that means I'm going to need more than one set. So now that the paint's finally arrived, I have to explain to you guys how exactly it works. So there's the base coat that gives it its original color, and then there's the Stardust that you add, which is the second coat that helps it look as factory as possible, and then you have to add a layer of clear coat to it. So the painting process is going to be pretty lengthy based off of how much material I have to cover. So because I had to use this TouchUp Direct OEM Kawasaki paint very sparingly, considering I didn't have much of it, not only that, but it was very expensive to purchase, I decided to coat the plastics in a thin coat of Duplicolor Perfect Match that I found at AutoZone, to try to get the entirety of it painted so that I can just go over with a very thin layer of the OEM paint afterwards, which the closest I could find was just some standard pearlescence white that was emulating Toyota colors, being very careful not to eclipse my budget on my Ninja 300 restoration. After all, we did only pay $1,000 for the bike. And after treating the exhaust for corrosion, I also painted it in high temperature 2000 degree exhaust paint. And now I have the task of trying not to screw up the paint on this tank.
Just took the last bit of the painter's tape off, and it's almost completely cured. It's just dry to the touch. It's turning out really good. Way, way better than I expected. That's some good paint. Clear coat time.
So after using the very last of my OEM touch-up paint, I was also able to apply a very thin coat to the fairings as well, and it all started turning out way, way better than I expected. I didn't want to mess up any of my progress, though. As the temperature started to drop at night, I took all of the plastics and the tank to cure in a spare bedroom, and placed a small space heater in the room to try to keep it at 85 degrees while I finish up the rest of the tasks on the bike.
So, while the plastics in the tank are curing, we're going to install the exhaust really quick, and we're going to install a new air filter. A third grader could make a new air filter for you. Just take some of this Uni foam that I purchased from Uni. I personally think they make the best air filters in the world. I bought this in bulk. All you do is cut it and then place it into its original frame, and then take some of the motor oil that you used on the bike and massage it into the foam a little bit so it catches all the nasty gunk and whatnot.
So to explain really quick about the complete non-issue of getting this bike to start, I mean, it was almost hilarious. All I did was I went the cheapest route on my troubleshooting procedure, and I purchased a starter relay. A starter relay tends to be the Achilles heel of most of these Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace bikes, because all it is an electromagnet that opens and closes a circuit, so it's very easy to fail. It's also one of the cheapest parts that's going to be on your motorcycle. Like this OEM one is $14, and that's for a Kawasaki one. They have aftermarket ones that are like $7 to $8. So after mounting the gas tank and putting some new 93 octane in there, as well as giving it a really quick oil change with some Mobil 1 1040, all I did was mount the gas tank, cycled the ignition key a couple times so that the fuel pump would accept some of the new fuel, and the bike started right up. I didn't even clean the fuel pump. I felt so bad that I almost wanted to contact the seller of the bike and give him more money. Almost. And since my plastics were still curing, this gave me time to put new LED bulbs inside the bike, and install the new OEM gas cap so the fuel tank can actually pressurize properly. Now, all that's left to do is just to mount the fairings onto the motorcycle and see what the result is.
I guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away. As you fade away. As you fade away. you try to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to